Well, it's chaos out there, isn't it, Brian? Everything's breaking down. But don't worry, there's a lovely bunch of people up in Oxford building a new world order. Let's hear a little bit about Makespace.
Makespace Oxford was set up for and by a coalition of local community groups and enterprises who are being priced out of one of the least affordable cities in the UK and one of the most unequal. At Makespace, we believe the most sustainable building is the one you don't have to build, and that all the skills and creativity we need to build vibrant, thriving places already exists locally, everywhere, and it just needs the conditions to grow. We witnessed the rising number of vacant buildings on our high streets and began unlocking these on a temporary, meanwhile basis, transforming spaces into affordable, community-driven places, nurturing connection and support, making a home for creatives, makers, doers, fixers and dreamers. And we use Meanwhile as a catalyst to build towards community ownership and wider systemic change. We're locally rooted and place-based, but developing approaches relevant at a global scale. In the last 5 years, we've scaled our model to bring back into use 30 vacant buildings, establishing hubs across Oxfordshire and making space for nearly 200 purpose-driven groups. Artists, tailors, weavers, makers, architects, community cafes, restaurants, dance theatres, roasters and organisers, all who want to build a mutually supportive community and prototype new forms of civic and social infrastructure. And we're now adapting and replicating this model with local groups across the country, with the ambition to transform our declining town centres into places owned and managed by the people that live there, building community wealth, climate resilience and fostering cultures of care and connection.
So I'll just say, if I may, Ben, police and military on the streets with batons beating people, that's very engaging news. It's dangerous, of course, but what we are showing you in these soft videos, equally, if not more dangerous.
Well, indeed, because that's what they're driving people towards. So the breakdown of the current system is designed to necessitate the creation of a new one. And this is the kind of location and innovation hub where this is happening, basically. So the thing that really strikes me about that video is that on the surface, it sounds lovely and touchy-feely and friendly and nice, but then you actually break down what they've said and what they're doing, and it becomes quite terrifying, actually. So let's just have a little look at this. What are they doing? They're taking over post-industrial and retail spaces on what they call a meanwhile basis, right? So this is a consequence of the deliberate deindustrialization of the country over the past 40 or 50 years, and the high street has been decimated by the internet, right, primarily, right? So this is moving into the vacuum that's been created by industrial policy in the UK over the past 50 years that has basically destroyed the country. Yeah, we have no wealth creating capacity. We have no communal spaces. It's been a radical transformation. It's been done deliberately in order to drive people towards this. Yeah. They are prototyping new forms of civic and social infrastructure. They're creating community wealth, right? Really importantly, this is about climate resilience. So climate change is driving this. Cultures of care and connection across the whole of Oxfordshire. They're adapting and replicating this across the country, and they're also developing approaches that are relevant at a global scale, right? So this is something that looks like it's just going on at a local level, organically popping up in Oxfordshire, but actually this is operating in a global ecosystem, and it is speaking to that ecosystem, and that message is going up, and it's also coming back down again as well, importantly. Now, let's have a little look at the blueprint for this thing, right? Because they actually published this, and this post you can see on the right-hand side. We're going to talk it through because it has some very revealing language on here, and it basically describes how these innovation hubs work. So we can start in the bottom right-hand corner, and we can see the first thing to notice is that this is a theory of change. Right? Note that language. Any organization that has got a theory of change is a progressive organization driving towards this transformation of the system. Absolutely crucial, right? And they have an approach that they use in this theory of change, which is about, amongst other things, embracing complexity, solidarity over charity. That's an important one because that essentially means the state versus charity. There's a lot of stuff loaded into this, and being transformational and doing it with an understanding of what they call these root problems. Now, the root problems they've identified at the top level there, you can see on the left-hand side, are underused spaces. Again, so this is post-industrial, post-retail, spaces that should be being used properly, frankly, but they're not. But these people move into it on what they call a meanwhile basis, which basically means temporary, but they have to invent new words for everything, apparently. These buildings apparently are climate unsafe. They lack community knowledge and imagination, and importantly, they're built on a substructure of dark matter. Right? Get used to this language. You're going to be talking about this a lot. Dark matter. The bottom three levels that you can see there. These are the things that exist beneath the surface that drive what happens in observed reality, right? There's a lot of theory behind this. It's actually something that I used to work with this stuff professionally for many years, right? And the few things that they've identified as being dark matter issues include things like imperialist and extractivist mindset, right? They're talking about our current culture. Private individualized ownership, that's a problem, apparently. Private ownership's a problem. Supremacy culture, that's a problem. Private intellectual property, antiquated exclusive property rights. Right? These are things that these people want to get away from, right? And they're going to do it using this program, and they're going to introduce learning. You can see that's just come in. The little green stripe is coming in from the side there. So these are new ideas coming in from their network and coming from case studies from other countries, other locations, from research, from storytelling. They love a bit of storytelling. And they're going to use that learning to unlock a new reality. Right. So we saw in the bottom left-hand corner the root problems, that underused space, and they're now going to create that, turn that into a learning space, a creative space that is people and climate safe and connected, and is a storytelling and a platforming space for people to build this new reality from. Right. And then there's a whole bunch of transformation again going on underneath in the dark matter. And ultimately what that's going to drive is new ideas, new culture, new ways of doing things into what they call a dream space. You can see that there. That's the kind of slightly translucent hexagonal cloud thing. And in there it says transforming systems. They are transforming the system. New ownership models, decolonial futures, solidarity networks, a new economy, essentially. That's what they are prototyping and building and scaling in Makespace, in Oxford. That stuff's getting pushed out into the town, then into the county, and then importantly, it's being used to influence national policy. You can see in the top right-hand corner there, across the country, and then also global policy. And those things then come back down into this physical and virtual location in order to drive change across Oxford, Oxfordshire, the UK, and then internationally and back down again, right? This is a network. They've just decided to do this themselves. Yeah, there's been no discussion about this whatsoever, and it's being driven by these people. So, interesting bunch of funders. So the first one, Step Change Fund, is a debt charity. There's some extremely high-powered finance and civil service people here, including the former head of the pensions regulator. That deserves more scrutiny because I don't know what they're up to and I don't like it. But also the National Lottery Fund, the Community Fund, they're always in the mix in these programs, right? So essentially what you have is people playing the lottery, generally indexed towards working class people, people on lower incomes, essentially funding their own destruction. Right, that's what my interpretation of the National Lottery is. What else have we got there? We've got this thing called Enterprise Oxfordshire, which issued something called the Oxfordshire Internationalisation Plan to 2025 in 2020. Right, so this is a Great Reset organisation, which is actually using funding from the Getting Building Fund, which was launched in 2020. It was £900 million fund, part of the COVID legacy, essentially, right? So this is all about the transformation of the system. We're now into 5 years into this, and this is what these people have been doing with this money. And this is all coming out of central government, right? Absolutely crucially, because the chair of this lady, Ashufta Alam, is a deputy director in the civil service who also oversees £2.5 billion of international climate investments. And it essentially is applying an international development methodology here to the UK. right? So the British civil service, which is supposed to be sitting in the background running the country, is actually engaged in a radical transformation program to completely rethink and re-engineer our economy, our social systems, governance, and to hook us up to this global network, all being funded by taxpayers who've never been asked about this once.
Thank you very much, Ben. This is very, very serious stuff we're giving you today, and we're going to say this is unique. What UK Column is delivering today is a unique look into the future governance of this country. You haven't been asked about it, you haven't voted on it. It is already being put into place, and it needs people to wake up very quickly.